Van Taylor is the current state senator of STA. He is running for Congress, Congress District 3. Okay, so please.
So I'm Van Taylor. I am currently the state senator for Senate District 8. So I represent 850,000 Texans in the Texas Senate. So if you live in within Collin County, Frisco, Allen, McKinney, Plano, all of the city of Richardson, Collin, and Dallas County, you're in SDA. And then I am today the Republican nominee for Congress for the 3rd Congressional District of Texas, right? So the 3rd Congressional District of Texas, currently represented by the tremendous man Sam Johnson, who has been our congressman since 1991. He, in that district, is all of the cities of Frisco, Allen, McKinney, and Plano within Collin County. It's about 750,000 people. Okay, so I'm Van Taylor, and my family were immigrants to Texas. We came in 1826. And but unlike so many of you who came here to get an education, we were just trying to stay ahead of the law. We were facing jail. And so to avoid jail, we came to Texas and became Mexican citizens. And actually one of my ancestors was actually the mayor, and actually he was not the mayor, he was the alcalde, because he was a Mexican government official for the city of Liberty, Texas. And if you come and visit my office in Austin, on the wall, I actually have the letter that Stephen F. Austin wrote in 1835 saying the time to revolt is now. And what Stephen F. Austin was talking about in 1835 was that a man decided to declare himself president for life of Mexico. And there was a constitution, the Constitution of 1824, and he literally tore that up, made himself president for life, and the Texans revolted and said, no, we want to be free. We want a democratic republic. And they were successful in 1836, so Texas became a republic. When we revolted, there were only about 10,000, 20,000, we're not exactly sure, 10 or 20,000 people in all the province of Texas. What's incredible is in 1850, so we're going to stay in 1846, in 1850 when we had our first census, there were over 200,000 people. And they weren't all born here. They were immigrants. And Texas has been a place where people have come for generations to build their dreams, to be somebody different than where to come and take a new chance, a new time, to do something with their lives. And my family, I'm very proud to say that my great-grandmother was born in Dallas County, my grandmother was born in Dallas County, my mother would have been born in Houston, Texas, where her parents lived, but my grandfather was actually serving in the Second World War, and he was in the Atlantic, and so my grandmother came back to Dallas. And so my mother was born in Dallas, I was born in Dallas, my youngest daughter was born in Dallas. So anyway, so some ties here, and I'm sure that many of you will write a story that's just as long. So a little bit about me, in addition to being born in Dallas, after college I took a commission in the U.S. Marine Corps, and I served on active duty. I was a reconnaissance platoon commander, and I was an intelligence officer for an artillery battalion. And when I got to the battalion, the headquarters battery commander pulled me over. He said, Lieutenant Taylor, I understand you're the new intelligence officer for the battalion. I said, yes, sir, I am. And he said, now, I heard that you graduated from Harvard in 3 years. Is that true? I said, yes, sir. He said, wow, a smart intelligence officer. What will the Marine Corps think of next? So it was a low bar, but I managed to get over that. I actually made the unusual choice of continuing to serve in the Marine Corps Reserves while I got my MBA from the Harvard Business School. And my Marine Reserve unit was actually in Washington, D.C. So I'd actually fly from Boston down to Washington, D.C. To drill at the Anacostia Naval Annex. So for those of you that have flown into Reagan National Airport, if you look across the Potomac River, you can actually see the Anacostia Naval Annex. There's a tall 10-story building that's the Defense Intelligence Agency. Next to that is HMX-1, which is where Marine 1 waits before it goes to the White House to pick up the president. And next to that is a little 2-story building, which is where I would do my drills 1 weekend every month, 2 weeks in the summer. And when I graduated from business school, I went to my unit for one last drill to check out, and I was supposed to check out on a Saturday, Sunday. There was a wedding I wanted to go to that weekend. I said, instead of going to that wedding, so I called the unit up and I said, hey, so check out Saturday, Sunday, can I check out Monday, Tuesday? They said, hey, Captain Taylor, no problem. Show up on Monday, you can definitely check out then. So on Monday, I showed up at the unit, I did all my checkout, and Tuesday, I literally only had to do one thing. I said, I handed my canteens, and I said, well, about the day, I'll go over to headquarters Marine Corps, and I'll go to the Pentagon, because I've never been there before. I've driven past it a bunch. But I never got there, because that day was September 11th, 2001. I literally watched the Pentagon burn with my own eyes. And I made an oath to myself that I would continue to serve and to make a difference. And that day, I started driving back here to Dallas. And on Friday night, that was a Tuesday. On Friday, I was at 4th Recon Battalion in San Antonio, Texas. And I joined up with that unit. And that unit was activated January 10th, 2003. And on the first day of the American liberation of Iraq, on March 21st, 2003, I had all three of my teams were the first teams into Iraq for our brigade. And so I was very privileged to lead those young Americans, those young Texans, into battle on the 21st of March, 2003. They put the reservists out front because they know we'll do a good job. All right, everybody, some people got that one. So I was very blessed to accomplish every mission that was given to us, and even more blessed to bring every single man home to their families. And I came home and I married the girl that sent me a letter every single day that I was there. And those letters are safely locked in a chest that I'm not allowed to read for fear they might go to my head. And so Ann and I are married. We have 3 little girls that we're raising here in Collin County. And I was active in Republican politics. After the birth of Susie, our 3rd child, our youngest child, she was a few weeks old, and I put her in the baby carriage, and we're going for the first postpartum ambulation, the first after birth walk as a family. And so I've got Susie, and I put my cell phone in the baby carriage, and Ann's got the older children, ages 3 and 4. And so we're toddling down the street, and the phone rings. And it's the head precinct chairman for House District 66, Imagine House District. And he asked me, he says, are you running? And I kind of say, well, no, I'm not, I'm walking. And he says, well, are you thinking about running? And I kind of look at the baby carriage because it is a running stroller, but I was not about to start running with the Ann thing right there. I said, no, I'm definitely not, I'm definitely walking. And he's like, you don't know what I'm talking about. I said, what are you talking about? He said, our state house representative, Brian McCall, is not running for re-election. Dan, you should run to be the next state representative for House District 66. So I thought about it, prayed on it, ultimately decided to run for that office, and was incredibly blessed to have the opportunity to serve in the Texas House. When I ran, I promised at that time that the first bill I filed would be a bill to help our men and women in uniform be able to vote. And it was basically impossible to request and receive a ballot and return it in 30 days. You just physically couldn't do it. So most of the men and women in uniform, if they were serving outside of their home county, they couldn't vote. They literally had the right to vote. And it was not intentional, but they just didn't have the right to vote. And so I put together legislation that said you could request and receive a ballot electronically and return it by snail mail. I had to change the election schedule for the entire state of Texas. And so that required a constitutional amendment. And not only did I file that bill, but I passed it. And military voting in the next election went up 150%. And I made good on my promise that would be the first bill I filed, and I exceeded myself by actually passing it. And I was proud to work on a bipartisan basis to get that done. That bill was actually carried by Senator Letitia Vanderputte, Democrat from San Antonio in the Texas Senate. I carried the companion bill in the Texas House. I also, in my second session in the Texas House, I actually had a very simple amendment that said any bill that increases taxes or fees will say so in the very first line of the bill. And this seems really basic and really obvious, and everybody voted for it. It's a bipartisan, unanimous vote in the Texas House. Everyone said that's a great rule. And then about 5 minutes later, I had another state representative with buyer's remorse come up and say, Of the 500 bills that have been pre-filed, that have been filed up to that point, 400 violate your rule. So they all had to get rewritten, and a lot of fees got taken out, and that has really changed culture in Austin. There was a desire to sneak stuff through, to not put it in the bill or put it in page 33 in a 50-page bill, make it very hard for people to find out what was going on. And that culture change ended that. And I was very proud to be part of changing the culture. Was very blessed to have the opportunity to follow a great senator, Ken Paxton, from Collin County, to be the senator of the Senate District in 2014. I was privileged to work on a whole variety of different issues in the Texas legislature. Let me just shift over and say I have always had a 100% meeting policy. So every constituent that's ever asked to meet with me has met with me as many times as they want to. So I am fully accountable and available to anybody in this room. If you live in this county, I will meet with you. And I've always held that. So that's not an election promise. That's just how I do business. And I do that for two fundamental reasons. One is, as a Marine, I learned about servant leadership. It is a privilege to serve you, and that was what it is. It is service. I am serving you. My flyer, does anybody have one of my flyers? Just want to hold that up really quickly. My flyer, there you go, hold it up. That has my cell phone number on it, okay? And that's this cell phone, okay? You can, I'm like Jeff, you can call me anytime, day or night. There's nothing worse than an employee you can't find at 3 in the morning. And that's because I believe I work for the people. The second reason I do it is because the very best legislative ideas come from the people that I work for. There is wisdom in the multitude. And let me give you an example of that. A mother from here in this district asked to have a meeting with me. I never met her before, didn't know anything about her. And she sat down and said, there is a man who is stalking my daughter. And when I tried to intercede and tell him to stop, he threatened to kill me. And threatened to kill my daughter. I am afraid to own property in this county because that's a public record. What can you do to protect me? And so I started looking into that and researching that. And we figured out that we needed to not just protect her property tax records, but we needed to protect her mail. We needed a way to route her mail through down to Austin and back to her home. And we also needed to protect her voting rights. In the process of working on this piece of legislation, we actually talked to a sexual assault counselor that said, I tell all of my clients, don't register to vote, because the person that raped you might find you. And that just broke my heart. That was just unacceptable. And I realized this was bigger than stalking. It was bigger than sexual assault. It was also we needed to protect the victims of domestic violence and the victims of sex trafficking. And understand that all 4 of those groups have multiple advocacy groups down in Austin that watch legislation, and they wanted different things in this bill. So it took a year and half a dozen meetings, 10 drafts of this piece of legislation, because I had to get the sign off, not only these 4 different advocacy type groups, because there were more than that, but I had to get the sign off of every voter registrar in the state, there are 254 of those, and every county clerk in the state, as well as the Attorney General's office. And so it was a lift to put that together. Now, once we got through 10 drafts or something everybody agreed on, it was everybody's favorite bill. And everybody wanted to vote for it. And I was proud to, again, do that on a bipartisan basis, to work together with Republicans and Democrats to come with a common sense solution that helps. And understand, there are literally 200,000 cases of domestic violence in Texas every year. This is a very serious problem. And so protecting those victims is very important to me, and it makes a difference, not just to the mom who lives in this district who had one meeting with me, but to the hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of Texans who need those protections. So I was proud to work on a bipartisan basis, but it all began because I had people like you that care enough to sit down with me and express their problem, and to say, how can you fix this? And so I'll finish up with this. It is a tremendous privilege to serve you. It's a tremendous privilege to lead. We have some really high-class problems. I think my colleagues have said that here. Collin County is blessed to have really good problems. but they need to be solved, and they'll be solved if we all work together. Every person here has a very special responsibility. You're very unique in that you took the time to be here, to listen to these 4 candidates, and I really encourage you to go out and tell people what you've heard, and encourage them to vote. And when I'm knocking on doors, and I tell someone, they say, yes, I'm Republican, or yes, I'll vote for you, I say, please vote on October 22nd, because if you vote on the first day of early voting, I'll stop calling you. Thank you, and God bless Texas.